All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar event. This is Josh. We're getting started a minute or two late here. Sorry about that. It's promptly noon. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay. If you could click the raise your hand button on your control panel there, let me know I'm coming through. I'd appreciate it. Oh, good. I'm glad I am. They've kind of changed this interface a little bit on me, and first time I've seen it, and I just didn't get a chance to do a sound check today. So good. All right. We're here to talk about accounting, settings, basic transaction types, effects and debits and credits. We're going to be working for the next 20 minutes or so. My CPU clock's a little bit behind here, but we're going to work for the next 20 minutes. Then I'm going to finish up wherever I am, and then we're going to go ahead and see what I can't do to answer some questions you have about it. First, it's just me here today. There's nobody else answering questions for me, so I may be able to get to your questions during the event. I may not. If not, don't worry. I'll do what I can to get to them at the end. If you've seen what you came to see at any point during the event, of course, you may leave the webinar at any time. As we like to remind folks is we record these events, and a recording of today's event will be on our website between now and hopefully the end of the day today, if not sometime early next week. If again you've used the little control bar before, you can use the little sidebar there to minimize your webinar control panel. If you've got a second dual monitor set up here, you can just drag that off there, get it out of the way. Allows you to get the full effect, visual effect of the presentation. So the workbook we're working from today is actually A103 for Church Windows, pages 2 through 4, 2, 3, and 4. If folks are many of these, we basically try to get through the webinars and go through as much of the workbook material as we possibly can. So right here, if we go to churchwindows.com and you go to training workbooks, they're basically in a downloadable format, $12 each, 22 if we print them and send them to you. But basically, I'm using right here A103 further down the list here. A103 right here, basic transactions, transaction types, numbers, dual entry debits and credits, effects of debits and credits. That's what we're talking about today. But FYI, these books are really helpful. They're updated for each of the versions. If you've never used them before, folks love them. They swear by them. They're very helpful. You can download and purchase them from our new website anytime. But anyway, just want to let you know, A103 pages 2 through 4, if you have the workbooks, that's what we're going to be working with today. Okay? All right. So basically, the first thing we'll talk about on that on page 2 is the accounting settings. And where that is if we open accounting and we go up to special functions right up here at the top. Let me grab my little highlighter friend here. Highlighter. Right up here, special functions, and then when that changes, it'll go to settings here in the upper left-hand corner. So we click on special functions, settings, and this opens up our accounting settings screen. There are a number of things on here that folks may or may not be aware of that's just important. You may want to use some of them. I would, definitely. So if we look at our accounting settings window here, we've got 2 tabs, settings and licensing additional features. Basically, licensing additional features is just basically if the church decides to purchase or add on the accounts receivable add-on for accounting, that's where that license code is entered or license key is entered. There's nothing else on that tab. But we're really here to talk about the actual settings tab. Okay, this is for all accounting users. So the first thing is default asset account. So right here it shows default asset account, and we have our Huntington Bank checking listed there. And basically what you're saying by setting that is anytime I go to pay a bill, enter income, do something that involves a payment transaction, that I want that asset account to be the one that pops in automatically. Okay? And so if many times folks won't have this set, and I strongly encourage they do. If you write all of your checks or post your payments out of one single bank account, save yourself some time and some mouse clicks by setting the default asset account. Okay? I think we'll have a minute here to look at that and how that pops in automatically when we do that. Also, default payment method for payments. if 9 times out of 10 you produce or print computer checks for your payments, I would set that computer check as your default payment method too. You can choose any one of the payment methods you want: computer, cash, EFT, debit card. Maybe some of you you pay virtually all of your bills online now. Maybe you want to set EFT as your default payment method for your payment transactions. Okay, but again, it saves time and mouse clicks and having to enter and choose a particular payment method. Okay, and these other two are in regards to accounts receivable. Again, if you want to enter a default payment method for collections, basically, do you receive, from your accounts receivable clients, do you receive payment from them in the form of cash or check or what have you? More often than not, you can again set a default payment method. And what do we want our starting invoice number to be for accounts receivable? And there's a default print on deposit slip for collections. Basically, we want to include our accounts receivable income or collection postings as part of our deposit slip in Church Windows accounting, or our deposit slip. It doesn't necessarily have to be accounting. It could be from donations too. Again, just some basic but very important settings for the accounting module that are controlled everywhere in accounting. Finally, here in the upper right, we've got our user settings where it says always confirm and ask me about printing after posting transactions. 9 times out of 9, that should be checked for virtually everybody, but basically you're saying, okay, I'm entering my bills, I click post, that window pops up and says, would you like to print the report of the bill transactions you just posted? If so if you like that prompt, you print your reports after you post every time, you'll want to make sure that box remains checked. But we get a lot of support calls on this where, somebody says, hey, I've been posting transactions for the past couple of days and I'm not getting that prompt to print my report afterwards. What gives? We just simply steer them into this settings window. That box right here is unchecked. We just simply check that and click OK, and you get that prompt to print those reports back again after posting each and every time. That is unique to each module. So there's one for donations and one for membership, etc. as well. Well, not for membership. Posting doesn't exist there, but for donations for sure. And also, finally, we've got our reset screen sizes to default sizes and locations. If you've got screens that are kind of looking goofy on your screen when you're going in to enter bills or pay bills or journal entry or chart of accounts, wherever. A lot of times it occurs where folks go, oh, I've got a screen that I've maximized and I've moved it off and I can't scroll to the very top of the screen, something. They don't have full functionality of the software. We come into this, we click the reset screens to default sizes and locations. It turns gray. It's done what we've asked it to. We click OK, and the screens are all back to the default settings that Church Windows puts into them, and you should be able to have your full control back again. Okay? And then again, when you're finished through that window, as I did, we would simply click OK through that. So just an FYI, as I said before, when we go to pay bills, I'm just going to use this as an example for our default payment method. I'm sorry, folks. I thought I had changed back to 2017, but I did not. Sorry. So we go to pay bills. We go up to quick pay, view vendors with a balance. I put in my my tax payment, click OK. Notice right here under my default payment method, asset account and default payment method both pop in with those two defaults that I had set under settings automatically for any one of these. I can always change them, under each individual line item if I wish, So if I go, oh, well, my, this particular payment for the Internal Revenue isn't being, is paid electronically, which generally how that occurs these days, is I can just click in the one here for the one particular line item and just change it. So you don't have to stick with whatever the default payment method is. It's just it pops in with those automatically whenever I'm posting payments or entering income or what have you. Okay? All right, so check out that settings window. It can certainly be very helpful for you. Second, transaction types and numbers. This is a very commonly sort of overlooked, I think, this is something we get a number of support calls on, but it's just important to understand about how thorough, at least I think, Church Windows is with regards to maintaining the accuracy of your data and the integrity of the data is the use of transaction types and transaction numbers. So basically, every time a transaction is posted in Church Windows into accounting, the system assigns a number, a transaction number to that transaction, and an abbreviation for the type of transaction it was. Okay, so if we go up to, say, transactions and browse, for example, and we look right here on hours, so I'm going to just kind of expand this window here a little bit. Right over here, we've got our transaction number and our transaction type column right here. All right. Basically, I can probably expand that out a little bit too. Whoops. There it is, type. So right here, our very first transaction of the year is transaction number 1, and DONA, it's donations. You know, PYRL is payroll. They're pretty self-explanatory, I think, in most cases. You know, JRNL would be journal entry. You know, payment would be PYMT. You know, we've tried to kind of keep them as expanded as we could. But if you really want to see those, what I recommend is there's lots of places you can actually see what they are. But if you go up to, like, say, change year, filter, and sort, we clearly see right here on the right-hand side of our filter tab, transaction types. So, you know, INCM is income, bill is expense or bill, PYMT, they're all there, including accounts receivable invoice and accounts receivable collected. Okay? So, and again, there's other places you can see it too. You know, so if you go up to, say, your, you know, reports and, say, general ledger, you know, they're right here on the right-hand side. You know, income transfer, it doesn't show the abbreviation per se, but the different types of transactions are definitely listed there. Okay? But each one of those are assigned a particular transaction type. There's no way to post a transaction in accounting and not have it assigned both a transaction number and a type. Okay? You know, TNFR is a transfer. The number, every year, your transaction numbers will start over with number 1. So there's a clear established line in time between our final transaction number of the previous year and when our new transaction numbers start for the next year. If I click on the transaction number column here, it will resort them in numeric order. So I can clearly see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And of course, we can't forget about the fact that there may be reverse transaction numbers in here as well. So if you're not seeing transaction numbers in this list, most likely you have to go to change year, filter, and sort and check the box labeled show reversed in order to see those missing transaction numbers. Okay? But again, just be aware, transaction types and transaction numbers, something is assigned to those. The beauty of the system for me is, in fact, I was doing this on support calls before our webinar today was, I use this transaction browser options, come in here and use my date occurred and like particular specific transaction type all the time. You know, like if somebody's questioning, you know, are my payroll transactions appearing in there for this specific pay date? Enter the pay date occurred, enter the choose payroll transactions, you know, click OK, and there's all of my payroll entries. Okay? Also, if usernames and passwords are required to get into Church Windows, which we strongly recommend, is not only will the transaction number and type be assigned to each one of them, but the username will be assigned to it as well. Okay? So we can run a report to see what a specific user has done in the system. Okay? In addition to username for audit trail, for who did what, it also assigns a date posted here for each one of these transactions. So right here, if we look in the upper right of our filter tab, we've got our date occurred, which is the date when the transactions are affecting our accounts, but the date posted is the date that a user is sitting at the computer when they click post to post some transactions. And that's the computer date that's down here in the bottom right-hand corner down here. Okay? So if I were posting bills and payments and what have you today, I could come in after I'm done, and just simply say, hey, I want a list of all of my transactions that I posted while sitting at the computer today. What I like to tell folks is that could really save you paper and printing expense rather than clicking post after each of them. Just come in here, enter date posted, the date you're sitting at the computer on both sides, simply click OK, and there are your transactions. You can just click print transaction journal in the upper right, and in a far more printer-friendly format, you would get all of the transactions you posted that day. Okay? So that's what I recommend a lot. That's what I do it when I work for churches and things like that. I won't print after each transaction or grouping of transactions. I wait and post them all at the end of the day when I'm done. It varies from one user to the next. You can do whatever you wish, but in terms of just kind of being ecologically friendly and environmentally friendly, maybe that might be a good way to go for you. Again, you have no control over date posted. Okay, it's a systematically assigned date based on the date on the computer. Even if I were to post transactions back in 2016, date posted on those transactions would still be 2017 because that's the date I'm sitting at the computer. Okay? Now again, there's not really a visual demonstration in the software that really kind of allows to do this. We've got about 4 minutes left here, but just to verify that Church Windows is in fact a dual entry accounting system. That means for every single transaction in the software, there is a debit and a credit. Okay? Church Windows requires that 2 accounts be involved in every single one of our transactions. Okay? If we know what accounts to affect, Church Windows will know what to debit and what to credit. So an example of that would be when we go to enter bills. If we choose our vendor who we're paying and the expense account that we're charging for that particular bill, Church Windows knows what the debits and credits are on those transactions automatically. Okay? But just an FYI, the effects of debits and credits on our accounts are sometimes a little odd for folks who are unclear or unfamiliar with accounting and bookkeeping practices. Is a debit to an asset and to an expense raises the balance of the account, and a credit to those accounts, the assets and expenses, decreases them. Okay? An expense goes up when we pay something out of it to show that we've spent more money out of that account. Okay? When we credit an expense, it decreases to show that we've spent less. But just an FYI, the system works. So you debit an expense and you credit your vendor. You're taking the money from the expense, through the expense, out of the fund, over to, and moving it into that vendor to show that the bill is paid. Okay? But the system works. This is not uncommon for, dual entry debit and credit systems, but just be aware that those debits and credits can sometimes kind of play a little havoc with your thinking from time to time. The expense balances don't show as negative balances. They show as positive. They're a specific account that's set up to record how our monies are spent. So when we go to something like our reports and our treasurer's report, and this is how I like to show this to folks, is, when we look at our treasurer's report, our income account balances show as positive balances. Okay? Here positive. Let's maybe uncheck accounts with zero balance. That might create a little better focus for us here. Yeah, so we show a positive balance in year to date, and our expenses also show as a positive balance as well. They don't show up, but they have a negative effect or a reduction effect on the actual fund that they're linked to. Okay? So that's just what really confuses folks is, wait, I debit my expense account, but the balance of the expense goes up. Correct. It's true. It just shows that I've spent that money through that expense account, but in this case I've taken $78.90 out of my general fund or what have you for my minister's salary for the year. Okay? A lot of times folks have a tendency to overthink this. Debits and credits certainly can be confusing. The more you work with it, the easier it becomes. Yes, a credit to a liability fund or an income account raises its balance, and a debit to those types of accounts reduces it. It's only assets and expenses that generate confusion for folks. Okay? If you have more questions about that, please let us know. All right, it's 20 minutes into the event, folks. I'm done with what I'm talking about here, and we're gonna have the recording of the event out on our website again, hopefully here between the next, either today or by the first thing next week. And we hope to see you at another Church Windows webinar event, and we'll look forward to hearing from you through support if we were unable to answer your questions today. All right, thank you all so much. We'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.